Good evening, I'm Bill Moyers. Not too many years ago, it all would have seemed like science fiction. A rocket weighing over 2,000 tons blasts 184 miles into space and completes a full orbit of the Earth in 90 minutes. On the same day, 12 countries signed an agreement to build an orbiting space station. Of course, it's all real. It all just happened. But as my guest tonight warns, if we're going to keep turning science fiction into science fact, we may have to rethink what we mean by education. And he should know. Join me for part 2 of a conversation with Isaac Asimov.
This program is made possible by a grant from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. A World of Ideas with Bill Moyers.
Isaac Asimov. Just about everyone who reads has read something of his. Science fiction, of course. His Foundation series is a classic. Science fact, chemistry, astronomy, physics, biology, children's books, history, math. One scientist calls Asimov the greatest explainer of the age. In this second part of our conversation in the Great Hall of Cooper Union in New York City, where Americans have been debating ideas since the days of Abraham Lincoln, I talked to Dr. Asimov about science, education, and the universe. Your book, your latest book, you're 300 and what?
Well, 391 altogether.
391, as far as the human eye could see. How far can we see?
It depends on what we're looking for. If we're looking at human history, we can't see very far because human history is a chaotic thing. Small changes have big results, unpredictable in direction. But if we're looking at something that is essentially simple, such as stars and galaxies and things like that, then it is possible to look far, far ahead. We may be wrong, but it is possible to make a case for something that might happen 10 to the 100 years in the future, one with 100 zeros after it. In fact, that's what I do in the last essay. That's why I call it Far as Human Eye Could See. It comes from Locksley Hall by Tennyson, of course. Then I looked into the future far as human eye could see, saw the something of the other and the wonders yet to be, and so on. But you have to stick to very simple things.
You see wonders out there?
Yes, in a way. I see a picture of a universe which somehow becomes infinite. It can expand and expand and expand until it is sufficiently thinly spaced to allow another universe to begin, and that perhaps surrounding our universe is the far, faint remnant of another universe, and beyond that of another one even fainter, and so on infinitely. And if the universe doesn't expand forever, if it goes into a crunch and disappears, there may be a really limitless ocean of vacuum out of which new universes are constantly arising like bubbles in boiling water, some large, some small, some with one set of laws, some with another. We just happen to be living in one that's suitable for life. And in fact, there we get into the anthropic principle, because we can only exist in one that's suitable for life, then the mere fact that we exist makes it suitable for life, you see. And there are people who argue that everything in the universe depends upon human observation. And then there are people who say, well, supposing there are no human beings, just frogs. Will a frog observation do the trick? It's a game for modern scholastics. Instead of how many angels can dance on the point of a pin, we try to argue out quantum weirdness. It's a lot of fun, but it makes you dizzy.
Do you think that we can educate ourselves, that any one of us, as you once said, at any time can be educated in any subject that strikes our fancy?
Well, the key words there are that strikes our fancy. There are some things that simply don't strike my fancy, and I doubt that I can force myself to be educated in it. I have never really been interested in economics, for instance, or in psychology, or in art as a non-spectator, to really know what art is all about. And therefore, even if I try to read about it, it bounces off. On the other hand, when there's a subject I'm ferociously interested in, then it is easy for me to learn about it. I read it, I absorb it, I take it in gladly and cheerfully. I've written more books on astronomy than on any other science, and no one has ever complained that my astronomical books are wrong, silly, anything like that. I've never taken a course in astronomy. I'm completely self-trained in it. On the other hand, I've written relatively few books on chemistry, which is my training. I've got a PhD in chemistry. But I know too much chemistry to get excited over it, whereas astronomy is different.
Excited. Learning really excites you, doesn't it?
Oh, yes. I think it's the actual process of broadening yourself, of knowing there's now a little extra facet of the universe you know about and can think about and can understand. It seems to me that when it's time to die, and that will come to all of us, there'd be a certain pleasure in thinking that you had utilized your life well, that you had learned as much as you could, gathered in as much as possible of the universe, and enjoyed it. I mean, there's only this one universe and only this one lifetime to try to grasp it. And while it is inconceivable that anyone can grasp more than a tiny portion of it, at least do that much. I mean, what a tragedy just to pass through and get nothing out of it.
Well, what happens to me when I learn something new, and it happens every day, is that I just feel a little more at home in this universe, a little more comfortable in the nest. I'm afraid that just about the time I'll begin to be really at home, it'll be over.
Well, you know, I used to worry about that. I said I'm gradually managing to cram my mind more and more full of things. I've got this beautiful mind, and it's going to die, and it'll all be gone. And then I say, not in my case. Every idea I've ever had, I've written down, and it's all there on paper. And I won't be gone. It'll be there.
Do you realize how the possibility of that depressing the rest of us who can't write it down the way you can? Isn't it possible that one could say, well, since I can't write the way Isaac Asimov and know what Isaac Asimov does, I won't do it at all?
Oh, I wouldn't want people to do that. A little is better than nothing. In fact, you might say that I overdo it. Lately, I've been thinking that people must look upon me as some kind of a freak. There was a certain pleasure in writing 100 books. You know, I felt I've accomplished something, then 200. But now it stands at 391. It's liable to be 400 by the end of the year, and I have every intention of continuing because I enjoy the process. And in the end, it seems to me nobody will care what I write, just the number. And maybe I will have defeated myself in that way.
How do you explain yourself to yourself? What is it that caused a man to want to know so much that he would write 400 books?
Well, I suppose it's sheer hedonism. I just enjoy it so.
Pleasure.
Yes. I mean, what made Bing Crosby or Bob Hope play all that golf? You know, they enjoyed it. And that's the way it is with me.
Do you think it's possible that this contagion can be spread to ordinary folks out there, this passion for learning that you have?
Yes.
Can we have a revolution?